views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and journalists and newscasters, sportscasters. And I said that with an underline because that's one of the things we can do tonight. And anybody really putting stuff out in the borough of the Bronx. What's really exciting is not only our first guest, but the second guest is going to be putting out music. And so we're going to talk to him about that and give you a little sample of what he's working on. But let's get started with my longtime Bronx buddy, Howie Karpin, who is a longtime sportscaster, official scorer of Major League Baseball, an update anchor on Sirius. If you want to know what's going on in sports, you do what I do. You check in with Howie Karpin. How are you, my friend?
Luckily for the audience, I won't be putting out any music.
Well, but you'll do a lot of listening. We've known each other long enough to know that that's probably the case.
Yeah, you've been great to me when these books have come out, and you've had me on at least 5-6 times, and I really appreciate it.
Well, this book is something that I appreciate, and one of the motivations to have Howie here, not only is because the baseball season has begun and he's our guy, is he, along with his collaborator Mark Rosenman, have put out a book about my favorite team, the New York Mets. You Never Forget Your First, a collection of New York Mets firsts. So, Howie Karpin, tell me about this book and the creation of it, and then we're going to get into some of the New York Mets firsts.
Well, it's Mark's the idea out of our duo. He's the idea guy. He comes up with the ideas, and then I get to work on it. He basically we put together the book with 40 chapters for 40 former players, and we also added a Tom Seaver chapter at the end, 41st appropriately, with listing 41 of his firsts, including things with the White Sox, which I thought was a pretty neat little list to finish up the book at the end. But there's a lot of great stories from these guys. Mark did, some of these guys spoke for an hour, some of them spoke for 45 minutes, 30 minutes. And Mark did all the interviews, asked them different kinds of firsts, which was different from our Ranger book because there's a lot more to work with in baseball as far as firsts. And there's some unique things in there, like Ed Kranepool, had some great old stories about Casey Stengel and the time they went on Ed Sullivan after they won the World Series. We had a guy in there who wasn't that big a fan of Joe Torre, which we found kind of surprising. And he described an incident that happened. That's Butch Benton. A lot of Met fans may not remember that name. We've got Hobie Landreth in the book. Some of the original.
Talk about first. He was the first.
Exactly. Right? Jay Hook, the first winning pitcher in their history. We go from the early 60s right up until recent times with David Wright. So it's a vast array of Mets history, in this book, and it's a pretty thick tome, I might add.
I was really, I read it and it's exhaustively, I don't want to say researched because obviously it's really them, the players talking, but how do you get to all those players? I mean, how do you find Brooke Benton or Mike Baxter? I mean, maybe it's easy to find Edgardo Alfonso at this point, but how do you get to some of those guys who people haven't been in touch with? It seemed like magic to me.
Well, Mark and I, we combined for a lot of years in the industry, in the business, so we have contacts, and Mark has a lot. I mean, he does a show on the internet station that we work at, so he's had a lot of guests over the years, including the old timers. But he tracks them down. He really works hard to get these interviews, and then he transcribes them to me, and I add little tidbits of information about the guy, maybe within the text of the book itself or in the front, and when we introduce the chapter itself, and it adds a nice little touch for people just to read. You read quotes in the paper all the time. This is just an expanded version of it. It's their words. Obviously, you clean it up with the stumbles and the ums and things like that. But once you clean it up, it's nice. It's a nice little text, and it's an easy read.
And it also gives you a lot of insight as to what they thought about. And you never really,
Exactly.
you listen, we know, the history will document when a player plays and for the first time in a major league game or his first home run. But I thought it was interesting. What was it like when you were drafted for the first time? What and all those kinds of things. And athletes had, I thought, some surprisingly strong reactions because you just assume those kind of things as a fan. But to hear him say, wow, it was like unbelievable to me. This was the beginning of my dream coming true, so to speak.
Yeah, we spoke to Frank Thomas, who's also an original Met, and obviously, with all due respect, he had trouble remembering certain things, but he was pretty good for a guy of his age, and then some guys just didn't remember stuff, not because they were too old, they just didn't. But, they remembered most of the things that Mark asked, and it came out in great baseball stories. Sometimes they go off on a tangent and, they talk for like 6, 7 straight minutes to try to
And yeah,
put that
try to
in
pull out
text.
try
Yeah.
to pull out two paragraphs out of that.
Yeah, the
Um,
tasks are arduous to say the
I,
least.
you and I, as we've documented on these programs for a long time, could talk baseball for a long time. I do want to talk a little bit about the season, but let's just be clear: you never forget your first. A collection of New York Mets firsts for really any baseball fan, but certainly for Met fans. This is a great way to begin the season. You get the insight from some of your favorite players and some players you didn't even remember.
Yeah, it's Pressbox Publishing, which is Mark and I kind of pseudo company because we self-publish. So
Listen,
we've done 6 together, and 3 of those under Pressbox Publishing. It's available on Amazon.
and listen, people will enjoy it. Are there other firsts coming up? Could we tell the story yet, or we don't know yet?
It was a Ranger first, but that didn't get a lot of play because it came out during the pandemic. But it's
Right.
out there. If you like Ranger firsts, I mean, there's a lot of great stories from that book too.
Listen, these are great New York sportscasters and frankly fans. If you told me Howie Karpin wasn't a fan, that would be a big mistake. Howie, let's talk about Major League Baseball. It's been an interesting opening of the season. We will say that we're recording this on Monday. It won't air till Thursday, so there's a little stuff that's going to happen that we don't know about. Any first interesting impressions? Specifically, there's nothing to say about the Mets, but about the Yankees. I mean, they got beat 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays. They have their work to do.
Yeah, before I get to the Yankees, the team that everyone loves to hate, the Houston Astros, are suddenly 4-0. So, you want to put them in the back burner. Not yet, at least not in that AL West. The Yankees have a little problem here. I mean, it's only 3 games, but it's a carryover from what's been happening, not just last year, but the last 3 or 4 seasons, where their offense seems dynamic. They have the names, but is the mesh there? I mean, there's no balance. I've been talking about this forever on your show. I mean, they lack really quality left-handed hitting in that lineup, and you can't live off a right-handed lineup when you're facing so many right-handed pitchers throughout the sport. They're overmatching the percentages on you. That's what it comes down to. You can analyze and analytic all this and that, this garbage that they come out with, some of it. It makes no sense. I mean, your eyes tell you that this offense is not dynamic. It's not exciting right now in the first 3 games. It's kind of boring, to be honest with you. They don't generate a whole lot. They sit back and wait for things to happen. They're constantly letting good pitches go by. They're not aggressive at times. They have to, the other day, Clint Frazier, who's actually been doing something in the first 3 games, let a 2-0 fastball down the middle go by, and you could see how frustrated he was that he did it. So
Yeah.
there's something there that's not reaching the players, or it's not clicking in. Look, they'll have their games where they score 11 or 12 and look, oh, wow, this offense looks great. They'll hit 5 home runs. But then they go into what happened this weekend against Toronto, whose pitching is not that great and has a lot to prove, and they held the Yankees down.
Howie, there's never enough time, but let's talk about the movement of the All-Star game. I thought it was a decent move. I know there's a lot of pushback. People don't like the idea of mixing politics and baseball, but it's always been part of baseball. Jackie Robinson, that was politics. They retired his number at Citi Field, a number of years back. Even the Mike Piazza home run, that was an expression of American pride and politics and world politics. Your thoughts and any idea where they ought to play this All-Star game?
Well, the Mike Piazza home run, we were all united on one cause. The whole country was on the same page. We're divided on this issue, unfortunately, with what's happened. I'm not the politics, I'm not as versed on politics as you are, certainly. But politics is in sports now, and these athletes have a voice, and people have to face up to that. They influence what goes on. They have a powerful voice because of the media and their impact on society. And now they're flexing their muscles when it comes to that. Look, baseball was in a tough spot here. They have to support their players. Let's say they kept the All-Star game in Atlanta. What do you think would be happening every day? They'd be asking questions about it. Are you going to play in the game? You'd start to see a boycott movement. I'm writing about this on my nysportsday.com column. Baseball acted quickly because they saw what was going to happen here. And whether you like it or not, you want to walk away from baseball, that's your prerogative. I mean, we are divided as a country, and this is an issue that once again has brought that divide to light.
And in a way, it put baseball on a par with the NBA and the NFL that have also made statements. Howie, where do you think it should be played? I'm going to vote to have it in Milwaukee, still in honor of Henry Aaron, one of the great baseball towns. And to me, that would be a fitting spot for the All-Star game.
A lot of people have mentioned it. From what I read, though, Wisconsin may be trying to implement some of these laws. Where do you go then, if that happens? So, I mean, it's wide open right now. I actually thought Yankee Stadium, may be a possibility because it hasn't been one in the new place yet. I mean, we just had it here at Citi Field. It's already 8 years. It goes fast. But, it's yet to be decided. I'm sure we'll hear something soon. Obviously, again, I'm not big on the politics, but it appears it's going to be in a state where, it's a blue state. That's where it's going to end up. And that your best guess is as good as mine.
Last thing, let's just run down the divisions and get Howie Karpin's prediction for who's going to win the AL East.
I'm still picking the Yankees. I just don't see the competition there. I think they're their own worst enemy.
In the Central, you like the White Sox, like everybody
I like the
else?
White Sox a lot. It's dimmed a little because they lost Eloy Jimenez, probably one of their best players. They didn't look that good over the weekend. I still think that they'll be the best team in that division.
The West, the Astros.
The A's will start off slow like they usually do. They're 0-4, and then all of a sudden they'll make a surge. But I don't know if they'll overtake Houston.
NL East, the Mets going to do it, or the Braves still too strong?
I like the Mets over the Braves. A lot of people don't, so we'll see.
Central, I have a hard one with that.
Cardinals.
Like the Cardinals are too strong.
Not a whole lot to choose from. The Brewers are okay, but I don't think they're good enough.
Cardinals picked up that third baseman.
Yelich will have a big bounce back year.
Dodgers or the Padres going to make a run?
Dodgers, Padres 1-2. My World Series pick when I was asked on Sirius XM about 2-3 weeks ago was White Sox Mets. So
well, I'm all for it.
I know you are. It's happening.
You never forget your first, a collection of New York Mets firsts by Mark Rosenman and Howie Karpin. Howie, next time we'll do a 3-hour show and we'll really get into all this stuff. All the best. Stay safe, my friend. And make sure people check out Karpin's Corner Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on the internet radio station 365sportscast.com. All the best, Howie.
Thanks so much. Love it.
All right. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, music, Bronx music. You're going to love it. Don't go away.